The times in my life when I have expected I am going to look really, really good in this situation, they've often been followed by a failure to live up to that expectation of looking great to the people around me, and having this feeling of, egg on my face, some shame, self-loathing. Like the worst scenarios of feeling like I'm looking foolish to everybody around me. It's almost always come because of an expectation that I was going to look good to them. What's interesting about it is that I think in a lot of those scenarios in hindsight, I probably did a perfectly serviceable job at whatever I was doing. But I had set an expectation internally or externally telling everybody how absolutely great I was going to look in one form or another. That even just doing okay at something, or even just being flat good, that didn't live up to the expectation that I had set. Another thing is that in some of those situations, I did outright poorly in whatever circumstance I said I was going to do well in. Because you're just going to do poorly at something sometimes. And I could accept that a lot more if I didn't, again, set the expectation that I was going to be flawless about it. I haven't quite figured out how to reconcile this, and I'm learning more and more. When I say I don't know how to reconcile it, maybe I shouldn't reconcile it for a little bit. Maybe I should just sit with the paradoxes of personal development. But it's hard for me to reconcile. You want to keep a pretty competent self-image, which I do, but you don't want to be driven entirely by by the self-image, by preserving the self-image, especially not for the people around you. A lot of stuff about manifesting the life that you want says, take this image of yourself, like the golden standard of how everything's going to work out, and keep that image in your head all the time. And if you start having doubts about it, just replace it immediately. Brute force that positive image back into your head. But that becomes a neurotic, anxious habit for me after a while, and is totally self-defeating, and it only further emphasizes the ways in which I'm not living up to that gold standard. Perhaps there is not any paradox or anything to reconcile. It's just about having that great balance of what I'm striving for and self-acceptance of the way that I actually am. And also keeping in mind, the key point of all of this is that the expectation was that I was going to look good. Not the raw objectivity of how I did, how I performed. Because those are not synonymous. They can sort of inform each other. They're not totally in direct opposites by any means, but we just have to acknowledge that they aren't exactly the same thing. What I did and how I looked while I did it. Some of my biggest accomplishments in life, I think I didn't look amazing while doing, but if I met a 60% mark on doing it well, and I got through it, it's like passing a class in school. That was an enormous achievement for me. Even if to an outsider, it doesn't look like I was anything special. And also, some of my biggest achievements, nobody was there to even see. Didn't announce it to anybody. I feel like I'm announcing my big achievements less and less these days, because all that it becomes about when I announce it to people is, well, how do they respond to it? And if they don't respond saying, wow, that was an incredible Jesus-like accomplishment, sometimes I automatically start feeling not as good about that achievement anymore, even though its legitimacy remains exactly the same, completely independent of anybody else's thoughts of it. Now, the mind is still going to keep making expectations about how I'm going to look around people. It's going to keep doing that, and me brute forcing that out of my head is not going to be effective. I already know that. I can just allow that thought of expectation to exist. And give it about as much credence as I've given any other thought about some future prediction that turned out to not be accurate. Yes, I hear you. Expectation. That is a possibility, and it's not guaranteed, and I remain the same, independent of its outcome. And what I remain as is a pretty solid self-image of myself that I've slowly cultivated over several years.